Oh boy. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Aaron, aka Stud Muffin Supreme of the Rated R Wrestling Podcast. And this is not one of our actual canonical podcast episodes. This is one of the many offshoot videos that you'll see on this channel because I feel like we can put more out there than just your standard episodes. We've done other stuff like the Out of the Ring tributes, and I think that's it. But this is something I wanted to try out. So I don't know, the workshop title could be Stud Muffin Says, right? I mean, I'm just being open and transparent with you. I'm the one that has the laptop and access to all of our recording equipment. So theoretically, I have a lot more opportunities to do this stuff when I'm not with Kyle or Mike doing the podcast proper. So, yeah, you've already read the title of this video, so I can imagine some of the AEW fans are ready to unleash on me that are happening to be watching this video. Just want to say, just because I don't like AEW doesn't mean I don't think that there isn't any potential or there isn't any good with it. I don't outright think it's the shits, right? Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it's the worst thing ever. I mean, Herb Abrams' UWF existed for a few years back in the 80s, or 80s, early 90s. So, I mean, there's things out there that have been worse than AEW. I'm for the majority of it, I'm not a fan of, and I'll touch base on some of the reasons why. So please, I know some of you can take criticism, but there are some of you out there, please, just can you have an open mind? Look, I'm not wanting to change your mind. I don't want you to stop watching AEW if you love AEW. Just as I'm not going to stop watching WWE just because you hate WWE and you want other people to stop watching it. I'm not going to stop watching it because I like it. Okay. The thing I like to equate it to is like football fandom, which in the past few years I've become a football fan, a bigger football fan. I've noticed no matter what happens, no matter what kind of criticisms come to your own, like if you have a team that you like for example, I'm a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a lot of faults and a lot of shit you can complain about the Cincinnati Bengals, but I like the Bengals and they're my team and I will root for them. And I know that there are other better teams out there, but that's just me. That's the fandom. It's just, I have a hometown loyalty. I have a loyalty bias, right? That's fine. I understand that WWE has some shit that goes wrong with it. That has a lot of crap that you can totally criticize about. That's perfectly fine because nothing's perfect. A lot of diehard WWE fans think it's perfect. A lot of diehard WWE fans don't want to accept criticism. The same thing can be said for the AEW sickos, as they call them. I don't really use that term a lot. I use it mostly out of a ironic term of endearment, but they're just really big fans. But some of the super fans, the sickos as they're called, they don't want to take the criticism. And if they do, there's always a way to kind of weasel out of it, to flip the criticism into something positive. Like I said, hardcore WWE fans do this too, right? So let's just be clear about that. I like to think as a WWE fan, I'm man enough to admit the faults. I'm sure there's some AEW fans that admit that the faults of their own company too, but this is mostly just to separate myself out from the diehard fans that just, it's either WWE or nothing or AEW or nothing. There has to be a fine line there. There has to be some sort of accountability for criticism. And at the end of the day, that's so stupid. People talk, these fans in the online wrestling community, they talk as if this is their fucking company. There's people out there that talk, and this happens with football too, by the way. People will talk in place for their team. They will speak for their team, or they will speak for the promotion that they like as if they have any sort of personal stake in it. You don't run the fucking wrestling company. You don't run the talent. You don't decide who's hired and who's fired. Sure, your money contributes to it, But people out there trying to book shit like they know what they're fucking doing and sit there and talk about, oh, well, this guy's got potential. This guy's got potential. Oh, this guy, Tony fumbled, Triple H fumbled. Well, people are in the wrestling business for a reason. Now, people that make it to the wrestling business always don't bat 1,000. There's people that make it to the wrestling business that suck, that need to get the hell out of there. But here's the thing. I'm not going around saying, oh, you need to book this or book that, or this is exactly how it has to happen, because I'm not in the fucking wrestling business. Of course, I can go out there and have an opinion like, oh man, I really wish LA Knight would get a lot more opportunities. That's just me being a fan, wanting to see him have better opportunities. But to sit there and say, oh, this is how I'm going to book him, blah, blah, blah. This booking sucks, blah, blah, blah. If LA Knight doesn't get pushed in lieu of somebody else, I'm not going to sit there and critique the other booking automatically because it's not LA Knight. Okay, the other booking could be better in a certain way. Maybe not in your opinion, but in the long term, it might. This is just an example. What I'm saying is, you can sit there and disagree with things. You can have a sour opinion on things, but we all can't act like we're the fucking bookers of these wrestling promotions. There's bookers, there's creative teams in there for a reason. Okay, just want to say that, get that out of the way. Oh man, gotta get a drink. I haven't had a bit of a rant like that in a while. It's my Ohio Renaissance Festival Cup. Yeah. Anybody's ever been there, let me know. It was fun. I've been there twice. In October, it was Highland. Oh no, it was a Celtic week. And then we went in December for Yuletide, which was the Christmas one. Oh boy. So let's talk about my issues with AEW. And self-admittingly, the reasons that the biggest reason that I was never really fully on board with AEW is because WWE's been my home team my whole life. I'll give you a great example. So, and granted, back I was a little younger, a little less mature, but when TNA was really thriving in the mid to late 2000s, like from like 2007 to like 2009, arguably TNA had a lot better product than WWE. You couldn't tell me that though, because I was diehard WWE. So anytime somebody went to TNA, I shit on them. Not literally. I like poo-pooed all that. Like when Christian Cage and Kurt Angle went over, suddenly they sucked. You know, I had my moments of immaturity. I'll admit that, right? But now that I'm older, I look back on it. TNA was doing a lot hotter stuff, a lot better stuff than WWE at the time. Even though I was a WWE super fan, I mean, I have to admit that a lot of great things happened, and because of that, you got AJ Styles making a big career in WWE. When Samoa Joe had a brief run in there, TNA was responsible for a lot of great things. I didn't see it at the time. Just now we look in the modern lens. AEW is responsible for a lot of great things. So much so that WWE has picked up a lot of their talent. Ironically, some of that talent was previously WWE, then went to AEW. And that was another criticism. I used to always go, oh, TNA's full of the WWE rejects. I was just being a sourpuss. And then, I mean, even some of those thoughts kind of creeped in when people started going over to AEW from WWE. But they weren't as prominent because I was a little older, a little wiser. But yeah, so when Cody and them did the double or nothing thing, and with the throne smashing, yeah, I was a little miffed. I was a little miffed. I think because that's my team that they're knocking, right? I'm sure I wasn't as steadfast in my team WWE or nothing like I was with TNA, but still, it was like part of me was still like, really? But now that I look back on it, I understand why they did all that stuff. And AEW needed to exist because WWE's product was floundering creatively, I felt like. There's a lot more misses than there were hits. Now, even though that was the case, I still was loyal and watched WWE because that was still my team. I only had hopes that it could get better. Unfortunately, Vince McMahon was not, he was losing it, man. He was making some pretty questionable decisions. I can remember, I'll give you a quick story. Went to Raw in May of 2019 in Cincinnati, the infamous start of the wild card rule, pal. And I thought that was pretty stupid. I remember when they did the Usi Hot segment with the Usos in the Revival, when Dash and Dawson were on the stage and were screaming because their balls were on fire. And this is the honest to God truth, I got up and I yelled, "The Revival are dead." And then like a year later, they show up in AEW, and in all, if you don't count NXT Black and Gold, their AEW run was definitely better than what they did on the main roster in WWE for sure. So yeah, AEW needed to exist because it had to give WWE a big kick in the ass. Like, okay, you've rested on your laurels. Now you have to do something about it. And they eventually did. I know they made their pot shots at first. You know, Triple H's comment about this is a pissant company. Yeah, I mean, you gotta. I'm sure it was under his crawl that an unknown in the business, Tony Khan, was going to try to take a crack at the giant, right? Okay, yeah, was it petty? Sure, I wouldn't have done it, but he did it. Okay, and it came back to bite him in the ass because NXT was getting dog walked by AEW in for the longest of times, and I hated it because I was watching NXT just to say I contributed to the Wednesday Night War, right? And I remember being really irked at Chris Jericho, who like made this press conference in the early stages of Dynamite where he's like, I don't think anybody on the NXT roster can hold a candle to anybody that's here on the AEW roster. Ironically, most of the people in that era of the Black and Gold went over to AEW. It's kind of funny. So yeah, I remember those kind of moments. But I'll say this. I almost, like, wholeheartedly was going to give AEW a chance. Like, I was prepared to become an AEW fan. And if you followed the podcast, you know I'm a fan of CM Punk. And I remember at first being miffed that he didn't end up re-signing with WWE. I had a small crumb of hope when he joined Backstage, but of course that was with Fox. That wasn't with WWE proper. And then the rumors were going around that they were perhaps, and by we I mean Vince, was going to try to extend the olive branch. And then the talks of him going to AEW happened, and I was like, fuck. Like, I really wanted Punk to go back to WWE. I did not want him to go to AEW because I'm like, if he goes to AEW, he's obviously going to sign a multi-year deal, and it's just going to be much longer. I got to wait before he ever goes back to WWE. And then he goes to AEW. Yeah. So I remember when it was confirmed. Well, it wasn't confirmed. I mean, it was the worst kept secret. He was the rumor was that he was gonna appear at I think it was the second episode of, was it Rampage? It was a huge packed house, and think in the United Center. It was like the worst kept secret. Punk was definitely showing up, right? So I'm like, okay, I will watch this episode to see if CM Punk shows up. And I'm gonna be honest. At first, it was to like, watch him not show up. Like part of me was like, I hope he doesn't show up so this crowd just goes apeshit. Because there was talks on the dirt sheets at the time of the potential fear amongst wrestling fans, like, what is this crowd going to do if Punk doesn't show up? Like, they were pretty much saying Punk was going to show up without saying it. They were dropping hints and all that stuff. So a part of me was hoping that he wouldn't, so it'd backfire. But no, the opening salvo of Cult of Personality, that was a big blow to me, because I'm like, shit, now it's like it's real now. And then he comes out with the Summer of Punk-esque white and black and red gear, and he comes out and he's like cutting the promos. And at first I was a little miffed at something he said in his opening promo. He talked about, and I think the quote was, in 2005 he left pro wrestling, and then in 2021 he returned. At first I had sour grapes about it, because I was such a huge fan of Punk during his WWE run. Like, I was such a big fan of his when he showed up in ECW in 2006. And I was a fan from him until he left WWE. And at the time he said that, my impression was he pretty much wrote off that whole tenure at WWE, which was the whole time I was a part of the fandom. So the immature part of me was like, he just dissed all the years of support that I gave to him, that I wanted to give him. So I was a little miffed at that, but I got over that because I understood what he meant after I thought about it. Because he was passionate about pro wrestling, and WWE is more in the entertainment. So in the context, I understood what he said. And then not long after his debut on that episode, AEW did the, ex-wrestler is all elite graphic that they posted. And I'll put it on the screen here, but I actually made a Facebook post. I said, okay, AEW, don't fuck this up, and I will be a fan. Okay. No, I had that one little discrepancy with that line he mentioned in the promo. I thought it was a great promo. I liked him interacting with Darby Allin and Sting. I thought this was going to be great. I was starting to imagine all the big matchups. I was such a fan of Punk. I was like, okay, he's going to pull me onto the AEW train, and that's how it's going to go. Okay. Oh boy. Well, it wasn't until, the next year at the Brawl Out that all that shit happened. And then, then the following year with the Brawl at Wembley. Yeah. So Punko eventually was fired. And when he went, there went any sliver of chance of me wanting to stick on board. But I was already kind of faltering on my thing not too long after that. It didn't take a whole lot. I think after Punk's feud with MJF, which I didn't really watch Dynamite, but I would always kind of tune in for the stuff he was doing with MJF because I thought that was like really awesome. But after that, and the whole controversy started with Adam Page, yeah, I made up my mind. I'm like, no, I'm not really doing this AEW thing. Not just because of, I thought it was like the drizzling shits. It's just, I was still with WWE for better or worse. I was, and that's just how it was. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because there's plenty of people on the AEW side that feel the same way. And I just like, okay, I'm not really a big fan of this. Not saying that WWE's product was amazing, but I was more comfortable with it. I guess that's a good way to talk, surmise it. But it wasn't just Punk that, I'll rephrase that. Besides Punk almost drawing me in, take that away, there are things about AEW that I really like, that I enjoy. Kenny Omega, I think, is super fucking cool. I love his theme song, Battle Cry. I think Kenny's a cool fucking wrestler. I love his moveset. His match with Daniel Bryan at Grand Slam, I thought was a great aura farming. Like, the fans were chanting, "This is awesome," before the match even started, and popped when the bell rang. I've always liked Kenny Omega. Even during like the brawl out stuff, I never really had a problem with him. The Young Bucks, on the other hand, I can't stand. I think, I feel like they think they're a hot shit or something. And it's funny because, their fans will say they're awesome, but they don't really move the needle really anymore in AEW. And then I could go on about the whole takeover thing with Tony Khan and how they tuck tail and run on that storyline and completely shit the bed on that one. But I'm just not a fan of the Young Bucks. But Kenny Omega I like. MJF I love. I think he's a great heel. I think he's one of the best heels in modern wrestling. Other things I liked. I loved the Lucha Brothers in AEW. I thought they were great. Penta I thought was cool as fuck. Okay. Swerve Strickland. I think Swerve is awesome. I'm glad Swerve ended up going to AEW because it made him a megastar. It really did. Like, even though I'm not a big Hangman Adam Page fan, I was thoroughly intrigued watching the build up to their big blood feud. Like the house burning, that was cool. All the spots in that big cage match where like they were the needles and all that stuff. I wasn't personally offended by that. I thought that was a little stupid in some degrees, but it didn't like horrifically offend me. The drinking the blood spot was kind of fucked up. But yeah, I think Swerve's awesome. He's got a cool theme song and everything. There's some other things about AEW that I like. I'm trying to think offhand. I'm sorry, it's late at night, so I'm trying to remember offhand. I'm going off the biggest things that I like about AEW. I like that they have a decent amount of matches on their card. It is a little frustrating when you only get like 4 or 5 matches on a card, but AEW will give you more, and sometimes to their detriment, because sometimes they jam-pack those cards with too much. I think there's got to be a balance. I think the right balance is like 7 matches max. Maybe 8 or 9 if you're talking about like a WrestleMania, like a one-night WrestleMania. I know we don't do one-night WrestleManias anymore, but 7 is a max, I think. 7's the sweet spot number. And, I mean, things in AEW that I don't particularly like. I don't like the wishy-washy breakneck start-stop stuff of their storylines. There's never been a whole lot of long-term. Granted, there are some long-term elements. The Death Rider stuff was long-term, although I can confidently feel like I can say this, that their end goal of that was not planned ahead of time. That it was more of a on the fly, we're changing things as we go, because, originally Darby Allin was slated to be the bringer of the downfall of the Death Riders, but it ended up being Adam Page, which I feel like worked out better because the presentation of their big match at All In Texas was actually pretty cool. But no, the Death Riders I thought was dumb. I didn't really like it too much. I thought it was stupid. Like I mentioned earlier, the Young Bucks attacking Tony Khan, and then they abandoned that shit not too long later. After they tried to turn Jack Perry into this mega heel, that failed. Now he's back with Luchasaurus, at least I think. I don't know. They haven't been around in a minute, have they? I don't know. I've been watching it. But he's definitely fallen off. He had momentum. He did, as much as I didn't like him. He had momentum with that scapegoat thing, but they never capitalized on it. It dropped. It faltered. The Young Bucks, I said, they never do anything meaningful. I mean, they show up just to do a big, freaking amazing athletic match. I mean, they can do the spots great, but that's it. What else do they have to offer? What do they have to offer? So, I don't know. I can go on more on the damn bean about it. That's just my thoughts right now. And I know there's going to be rebuttals. There's going to be responses to some of the things I said. And that's That's perfectly fine, because these are just my off-the-cuff thoughts, and I'm just being open and honest about why I'm not an AEW fan. I can appreciate what they do, and I can like some of the things that they do. Like I said, I love Kenny Omega. I think he's a great wrestler. One of the few reasons that I watch that, but I'm not a fan. And just because I like WWE, I prefer WWE, I should say. I understand that too. That's going to be me labeled a Fed and all. And let me also address that. I'll address this too. Some people might say, well, how can you be a fan of the Fed after all the shit that they do? And by shit, I mean like bringing back Brock Lesnar, which I wouldn't have done. I understand why they did it, because he's a draw and all that stuff, and it's the legal shit. I wouldn't have done it. I think it's pretty disgusting what ended up happening with Janelle Grant and all that shit. No pun intended. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, Brock was never proven to do anything. Like, he never physically did anything to her, but it's still fucking messed up that he was even considering meeting her for whatever the hell they were going to do as part of a re-signing tactic. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. So yeah, I wouldn't have brought him back until either he was fully cleared or he made some sort of public apology. That's what I would have done. And I wouldn't have focused too much on him just during all that. Just seemed like a bad thing to do. The whole Saudi thing. My whole thing is that hopefully, I mean, they had a 10-year deal starting in 2018, so I'm hoping by 2028 they don't renegotiate. But that won't happen because they make a lot of money off that. Damn. There's just a lot. I mean, you can talk about the current stuff, and we'll talk about that on the podcast proper, like the WrestleMania sales going down. And there's a lot of things, because Triple H's decline in his booking, which, I mean, we're not there in the meetings. My earlier point where I'm like, we're not booking the shows, they are. So where do we get off saying anything? We're not in the back. We're not in the back. I mean, of course, you got Unreal. I have not really watched it. I've watched clips of it. So you see how it goes, but they're only going to show you what they want to show you. Who knows? Triple H's creative decisions might be getting stifled by something. I don't know. Or maybe not. Maybe he is faltering. Maybe his decline is happening. But I'm still going to, be a fan there and just hope for the best. That's all you got to do, is hope for the best. Nitpicking every little freaking thing, you're never going to enjoy anything. So, yeah, I'm not going to keep wasting any more time. This is just, like I said, my raw, unadulterated thoughts about why I'm not an AEW fan. So, I've explained that I don't think that doesn't make me feel like, when I say I'm not an AEW fan, I'm not saying that it's totally the shit product. I'm just saying I'm just not an AEW fan. So, I hope that that some people understand that. Like I said, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. You should be able to like whatever you like. But I'm just giving my opinion because I'm on a platform now, and I don't really get a chance on these podcasts to go out and give my full force opinion, long form opinion. There could be more of these, down the road, but this is the one I wanted to start off with. So thank you guys for listening, and check out more of our podcasts. You can check out our podcast on Spotify, here on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and check out all those podcasts. We got 15 full episodes on. We're going to be working on our 16th one, hopefully tomorrow. And we'll get that out in the next day or two. So thank you guys for listening to me ramble incoherently. I'm Aaron, a.k.a. Stud Muffin Supreme of the Rated R Wrestling Podcast. See you later.